One of the first warning signs most former athletes feel in their body is this: they're always sore, and most people brush it off as age. Today, I want to explain why that's usually wrong and what's actually going on. If you're a former athlete in your mid 30s or 40s and you're always sore now, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. I hear versions of the same sentence every week. My back is always tight, my hamstrings are always stiff, my shoulders are constantly aching. It takes me 3 days to recover from one session, and most people write it off as age. They say, sure, that's just what happens now. Well, no, not exactly. Age changes things, of course it does, but what I see far more often is that the body changed and the training didn't. If you're still using a 22-year-old approach on a 38-year-old body with a 38-year-old life around it, the sessions are hard, the sleep is inconsistent, the food is patchy, stress is high, you sit more, you recover worse, and then you wonder why every session leaves you wrecked. That's not bad luck, that's a mismatch. I learned this the hard way. Back in 2016, I injured my lower back doing heavy bent over rows in my home gym. I had a cold spine, no proper warm up, lifting too much weight, and it was too early in the morning. 3 buzzing discs later, pain into the left leg. Eventually, I ended up being told that I'd probably never lift weights again. Now, I was lucky in one sense. Mine was obvious. There was a wall, and a very clear one of that. But the truth is, I didn't hit that wall out of nowhere. I was training with intensity and no structure for years, never doing warm-ups worth talking about, no proper periodization, no deload weeks, no respect for recovery, just effort. And effort on its own works right up until it doesn't. Most people don't get a moment as dramatic as I got. They just live with the warning signs for years on end. They're always sore, always stiff, always carrying some niggle, always one hard session away from a flare up. That was the lesson for me. The pain wasn't random, it was the result of a way of training that my body could no longer tolerate. Here's one of the biggest changes nobody really talks about. Your recovery margin gets smaller. When you were younger, you had loads of room for error. You could train hard on poor sleep, eat whatever, go out at the weekend, warm up badly, and still bounce back. That margin covered a lot of stupid decisions. As we get older, that margin shrinks. Not because we're finished, not because our body is broken, just because the cost of poor decision gets higher. A bad night's sleep shows up in training. A stressful work week shows up in recovery. A weekend of poor food and a few drinks doesn't just disappear by Monday morning. So now, if you're still training with the same intensity, but without the same recovery capacity, the result is obvious. You're sore all the time, not because training is bad, but because the way you're training no longer matches the body and life you're training inside. That's the mismatch, and it's fixable. Most people respond to this the wrong way. They feel sore all the time, so what do? 1, they stop training completely for a while, or 2, they keep hammering themselves because they think soreness means the session worked. Both of these options are a mistake. Stopping completely just reduces your capacity even more, but on the other hand, hammering yourself every time you train is no better, because now you're stuck in this pattern where every session buries you. Recovery takes too long. You miss the next session, and then when you go back, you feel like you need to make up for it, so you hammer yourself again. That's not progression. That's just a more respectable looking version of inconsistency. And a lot of former athletes get trapped there because they still associate hard training with good training. Those are not the same things. Good training builds capacity. Bad training just creates soreness and convinces you you're doing something useful. This is the bit a lot of people need to hear. Being sore all the time is not a badge of honor. It doesn't prove you're working hard. It doesn't prove the plan is effective. And it definitely doesn't prove you're getting fitter. In a lot of cases, constant soreness is just feedback. Feedback that your recovery is poor. Feedback that your loading is off. Feedback that your training week has no structure. Feedback that your ego is still writing checks your body has to cash. When people start working with me, one of the first things they notice isn't that they're destroyed after every session. It's the opposite. They feel better, less inflamed, less stiff, more consistent. And because they're more consistent, they actually start progressing again. Less punishment, more progression. That's the shift. If any of that hit home, I put together something called the Former Athlete Fueling Standard. It's the baseline protein and recovery standard we use inside coaching to start every rebuild. It will show you very quickly whether the basics under your training are actually in place. The link is in the show notes and in my Instagram bio. It's free to download. Right, let's finish off here. So what needs to change? I give you the principles enough that you understand what needs to change. First, your training intensity needs to vary. You cannot go at the same level every single session every week. Some weeks you push, some weeks you pull back. That's not being soft. That's how adaptation works. Muscle and strength are built during recovery, not during the session. Second, warm-ups are not optional at 38. 5 minutes of hip openers, good activation and thoracic mobility before every session changes how the entire session feels. Most people I coach are shocked at the difference this makes. It's the simplest change with the biggest immediate impact. Third, protein. Most former athletes are under-eating it. Their body doesn't have the raw material to repair between sessions, so the soreness compounds because the repair never catches up. Fourth, program deload weeks. 1 week in every 4 where volume and intensity drop. Your body catches up, the niggles settle, and the following week you come back stronger than the deload. That's the framework. Simple to understand. It's hard to implement alone because left to your own devices, you'll skip the deload, you'll cut the warm-up short, and you'll train at full intensity because it doesn't feel like enough. So if you're always sore now, don't just brush it off as age. Ask a better question. Is the way I'm training actually matched to the body I have now and the life I'm living now? Because for most former athletes, that's the real issue. Not motivation, not toughness, not age on its own. Mismatch. The Former Athlete Fueling Standard is in the bio and in the show notes. Have a look at it. It's free. And if this episode made you think of someone who's always sore, always stiff, always saying, I must be getting old, send it on to them. It might be the thing that changes how they think about their own training. Chat to you next week.